This is a list of the top 10 Sith Lords of all time. The reason I made this video is because I have been scrolling through YouTube and I have noticed that people base their top 10 list on their personal favorites, especially number 1. So I am going to base my list on the Sith Lord's skills and powers rather than a list of my personal favorites. Number 10. Darth Malgus. Darth Malgus was a Sith Lord during the Great Galactic War, around 3700 BBY. He relied on brute force as his main strategy. He was a master of Form 5, Xian, and Dim So. This form of lightsaber combat relies on the user's natural strength to overpower their opponent, which complements his brute force strategy. For force powers, it was pretty much the same story. He used basic force powers such as force push, saber throw, and force lightning. However, he applied these at a very high magnitude, which made them very effective. His brute force method allowed him to overpower many opponents. Number 9. Darth Phobos, the Hidden Fear. Darth Phobos reigned around 3600 BBY. She was a master of Form 7, Juyao. This is a very aggressive form of lightsaber combat that relies on the user's rage. Therefore, it is more common among Darksiders than it is Lightsiders. Her weapon of choice was a saber staff, similar to what Darth Maul uses. However, unlike Darth Maul, she is not afraid to use her force powers. She is a master of telekinesis. However, the reason she makes this list is because her telepathic abilities are off the charts. She uses her telepathic abilities to cloud her opponent's vision, to shapeshift, to feed off her opponent's fear like no other, and to use her opponent's deepest, darkest fear to utterly destroy him. The Jedi and the Sith of her time actually made an alliance to get rid of her, if this actually gives you an idea of how powerful she was. Number 8. Count Dooku, otherwise known as Darth Tyrannus, was a Sith Lord during the Clone Wars. I have actually heard people refer to Count Dooku as a lesser Sith. However, this is far from the truth. He was a very powerful Sith. He was a master of Form 2, Makashi, which is a deadly form of lightsaber combat that relies on speed and precision. This form of lightsaber combat was bred for saber-to-saber combat. Therefore, this makes him a deadly opponent for any lightsaber duelist, which he proves in Episode 2 when he defeats both Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker like they're nothing. And then he holds his own against the greatest lightsaber duelist of the time, Master Yoda. For force powers, he was a master of the lightning arts, which goes beyond just force lightning. There are many lightning attacks, such as lightning grenade, lightning bomb, lightning shield, chain lightning, and he knows most of these. He also has very powerful telekinetic abilities. Even with all these abilities, this is not what makes him the most deadly. What makes him the most deadly is he has mastered both the light side and the dark side from the best master of each side, the light side being Master Yoda and the dark side being Darth Sidious. All this knowledge from both sides makes him very, very deadly. Number 7. Marka Ragnos. Marka Ragnos reigned around 5100 BBY. He actually doesn't use a lightsaber. He uses a Sith sword. He's a master of a Sith sword, which is a formidable weapon, and it is a traditional weapon to the Sith species, and he is a half-breed Sith. He came to be on the throne by beheading Simus and claiming his rightful place as Dark Lord of the Sith. He proved to be very powerful in the Force. He was a master of Sith magic, telekinesis, and Sith alchemy. And he was excellent at Sith magic even in a time when there was great Sith magicians. During his time on the throne, no one dared challenge him. They all knew the extent of his powers, and even though there was extremely powerful Sith such as Nagasato, they did not challenge him. Nagasato was even afraid of him. No one came to be on the throne until his natural death. Number 6. Darth Plagueis the Wise. We have all heard the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise, but I'm going to tell a little more about him. He was obviously Darth Sidious's master. He reigned a little before the Clone Wars. He was a master of Form 2, Makashi. However, ironically, he doesn't like lightsaber combat. I'd even go so far to say he hates lightsaber combat. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he don't know it. He's a master of Makashi. He just doesn't prefer it. He prefers force powers. He is a master of telekinesis and Sith magic, which is his more famous powers, because he manipulates midichlorians to create life. He uses his Sith powers to be a scientist. He brings strange creatures to life and uses his powers to just create these strange creatures that he keeps in these canisters. However, he can also use his magic to keep the ones he loves from dying. However, I doubt there's many people that he would use this on, because I doubt there's many people he loves, or he's pretty dark-hearted. However, his greatest accomplishment is his apprentice, Darth Sidious, who will later come to rule the galaxy. However, this would also prove to be his downfall, because Darth Sidious kills him in his sleep with Force lightning, which is called the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. However, from a Jedi's point of view, this wouldn't be a tragedy. This would be like a celebration, but for a Sith's point of view, it would be a devastating tragedy. Number 5. Darth Vader, a man who needs no introduction. Darth Vader arose right after the Clone Wars and wreaked havoc through the Galactic Civil War. He was a master of Form 5, Xian and Dim So, and arguably the best Form 5 user of all time. The reason being that Form 5 relies on brute strength, and Lord Vader has quite a bit of it, because his body is made of cybernetics, metallic arms, and metallic arms are obviously more powerful than flesh arms. So his strength would be beyond any normal human or normal species, and no one could overpower him in strength. In order to beat Lord Vader, you'd need to use speed, which would be a different form than Form 5. He brings brute strength to an all-new level. And not only does he have this powerful offense, he has a powerful defense as well, because he's got a fine suit of high-tech armor. This suit of armor has actually saved him. There's a Jedi Master that landed a blow on him with a lightsaber. However, that didn't kill him because the lightsaber couldn't cut all the way through his armor. So he's got an extremely powerful offense and defense. For force powers, his favorite seems to be Force Choke, which he uses to torture enemies, to torture prisoners, to kill enemies, and to kill his own officers that fail him. He also has a very powerful repulse and strong telekinetic abilities. He cannot use Force Lightning because he has no flesh on his hands, and Force Lightning requires flesh to use. However, this does not hold him back whatsoever. His force powers are extremely strong. What makes Vader so powerful is he's in constant pain. And I'm not just talking about his physical pain. He's in spiritual pain because the love of his life died, and it has completely scarred him for life, and all he feels is pain, and he takes it out on his enemies, particularly the Jedi. And he is any Rebel Alliance soldier's worst nightmare. Number 4. Ajunta Pall. Ajunta Pall reigned around 6900 BBY. He was actually the very first Dark Lord of the Sith. He was a master of Form 1, Shisho. Shisho relies on wide, powerful sweeps. It is the most ancient form of lightsaber combat. He uses this with his proto-saber. A proto-saber is similar to a lightsaber, only it has a cord out of the bottom that attaches to a power cell, usually hooked on the hip of the user. And he has mastered Shisho, but this is not his deadliest weapon. His deadliest weapon is actually his Sith Sword, which is a very powerful and dark weapon, but it's hard to control because it's a dark weapon and it's cursed. However, with this weapon, he'd be a formidable opponent for anyone from any era. This is a very powerful weapon and he knows how to use it. For force powers, he is a master of telekinesis and Sith magic. His Sith magic was really enhanced when he comes to the planet Korriban. He led the Dark Jedi forces in the Second Great Schism War. They end up losing the war, and he comes to this planet called Korriban. And Korriban has a species that are called the Sith species, and they're force-sensitive species, and they teach him Sith magic, and he advances in it very strongly and becomes a master of this. Before that, he was already a master of telekinesis and proto-saber combat. He lived in the time of the original Sith Lords, when they were very powerful Sith Lords, such as Zozan, Drapa, and Karnas Mur, and out of all of these powerful Sith Lords, he was the most powerful. And now we go to the top 3. At number 3, Darth Sidious. Darth Sidious is a famous Sith Lord that reigned during the Clone Wars and the Galactic Civil War. He is very manipulative and cunning. He starts out as nothing more but a Naboo citizen. Darth Plagueis the Wise chooses him to become his apprentice, and he learns the Sith arts. However, with very little resources, he goes from Naboo citizen to Naboo senator to Supreme Chancellor to Supreme Chancellor with the emergency powers, and then finally his final goal to Emperor of the Galaxy. And he does this due to his manipulation and cunning. He is a master of Form 7, Juyo, which I explained earlier, relies on aggressiveness and rage. And since he has the full power of the dark side, he can take this form to its fullest. However, he prefers force powers. Unlike his master, he doesn't hate lightsaber combat. He doesn't mind it, but he prefers force powers. And his most infamous force power is his Force Lightning. And he arguably has the strongest Force Lightning of all time. His Force Lightning can send opponents flying. It can roast one opponent. It can cook multiple opponents. It is very powerful, and it will fry anyone he releases this burst of energy on. His telekinetic abilities also allow him to throw very heavy objects with ease. His knowledge of the dark side allows him to be extremely powerful in that he can actually cloud himself from the vision of the Jedi Council, and he is sitting there under the Jedi's nose the whole time, and they don't even recognize it. With all his power, wisdom, and knowledge, he uses it all to benefit nobody but himself. Number 2, Tulok Hord, the Lord of Hate. Tulok Hord, it is debated when he actually lived, but I am going to roughly estimate him at around 6,000 BBY. He is famous for being the greatest lightsaber duelist of all time. However, his powers do not stop there. He is also a master of Sith magic and telekinesis. But I'm going to start on his lightsaber skills. He is a master of Form 2, Makashi, which makes sense due to it being the form that is bred for saber-to-saber combat. And he has perfected this form, turning it into something just extremely deadly. Anyone who dares challenge him is going to get carved up. He is just simply the greatest lightsaber duelist of the Sith Lords. He is very precise and unbelievably fast. For force powers, he is a master of Sith magic, but his telekinetic abilities are off the charts. He, in his lifetime, actually pulled a cruiser out of the sky that was over 1,000 foot long, and he pulled this out of the sky onto the ground with ease. So if he did this with ease, there's no doubt that he could pull something larger, say like a banking clan ship, right out of the sky. In his lifetime, he conquered over 100 planets for the Sith Empire. Sadly, his death is untimely, and he doesn't die on the battlefield as you might think. He actually remained undefeated on the battlefield. No one could stand up to him. Even in a time when there was many other great lightsaber duelists, he was far above everyone else. His death actually comes when his own apprentice stabs him in the back. And now you're probably all wondering, who could possibly be more powerful than this guy? Well, it is actually Darth Vader before the suit. And before you all start complaining and say, I already said Darth Vader, I did say Darth Vader, but there is a big difference between the two, a huge difference. And the difference is, one that's obvious, is before the suit, he was very fast and agile. And even though his suited version does make up for this by strength and armor, something that it does not make up for is on Mustafar, he lost 3 of his limbs and lost a lot of blood. And he also, on his remaining arm, the hand is missing from earlier in his life, it being detached by Count Dooku. So nearly half his body is gone. So he's lost a devastating amount of blood. And this is where the midichlorians reside, is in the blood. And that is where the Jedi's and Sith's force powers come from, is the midichlorians. And he has lost a huge amount of his midichlorians, which dims down his force powers. And even in his weakened state, he is a force to be reckoned with. He strikes down Jedi and Jedi Masters and many Jedi at the same time, and he runs over them when he's in his suited version. His weakened down version, he just runs right over Jedi Masters like they're nothing. So could you imagine how powerful he would be if he was at his full potential? There would be no stopping him. He would have slayed Darth Sidious and took on his own apprentice. He would have crushed any opposition towards him, and he would have struck down any opponent who dared challenge his authority, and he would have brought the galaxy pure hell. This concludes my list of the top 10 Sith Lords of all time.